Good afternoon, Sun People. We are here again, coming back to you with another podcast. This is Seth Moore, again coming to you here on Anchor by Spotify. And we are going to be talking about today, we have been giving you discussions about 666 and what are the elements within those compounds and how they affect us and how we're moving, how we're shifting towards another dimension in our cosmic reality, and how this is affecting the universe, and how this whole transition is unfolding every moment in space that we're in today. So we're going to be talking about this, and we have mentioned some things to you before about how, the definition of this 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons actually affects the cosmos, and how we are those elements in the universe, and how that is going to cause the shifting in the cosmos. You're going to be blown away by this, because I had mentioned before that I would come back, and if in fact there were some things that were conveyed to you and missed, that I would bring it again. And so here we are. And of course, there's so much to cover on this subject, because we have mentioned before how when people normally look at this subject, it's normally looked at it in a way of a Western ideology and a Western Eurocentric way as to giving to the indigenous melanated person, and you immediately look at it in an evil way, or evil connotations associated with it. And it's all because you've been manipulated, and how they use, as I've said several times before, how they use the Bible against you, how they use comedic science against you of your progenitors and your lineage and who you are. And this is, it's a war, y'all. It's a spiritual war. That's why it says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high places. These are the battles that you're actually fighting. It's a spiritual battle. And so when you have been reduced down to a carnal level, you're not fighting a spiritual battle. When you've been reduced down to the lower carbon-based element, you are not fighting a spiritual battle. We've mentioned this several times before, because we want you to really get it. We want you to spiritually get it. And the tones change, and you can recognize within my tone and how that the tone changes from podcast to podcast. Why is that? It's because the frequency that I'm on. It's because all of the people who do podcasts that talk about the spiritual science in our 12 carbon base element. That's where we are today. We're in a 12 carbon base element, and we're going to be talking about the 12 carbon base element. We're going to be talking about the 7 carbon base element, and how that this transition actually transverse us to that new spheres of dimension. And the reason for the tone is because our ancestors created a culture out of vibrational frequency. You need to understand that our culture was created through vibrational frequencies. Okay, that's how the Kemetic culture was actually structured and brought into being, I should say. That's a better term. Brought into being. It was brought into being through vibrational frequencies. And so this is why you hear the tone change with me every time I do a podcast, because it's vibrational. It's being done through vibrational frequencies. Sometimes you'll hear me be more heightened because the vibrational frequency changes, okay, from podcast to podcast. And when you hear your other brothers and sisters give you information, their vibrational frequency and tone will change because of vibrational frequencies and tones carry vibrations and frequencies. They carry signature messages. They carry unveiling manifestations. Okay, so that's why you would hear the tone change. That's why you would hear it change, because of frequency, because of tone, because of the signatures that it carries from the ancestral realm. It carries that from the ancestral realm, okay? And that is the creator in the cosmos through energy that's actually making this happen. So let us do this. What we're going to do is we're going to pause for a moment, and we're going to be coming right back, and so that we can bring this in your hearing. Okay? So stay with us. All right, sun people, we are back, and we're going to begin. Okay, the secret behind 666. Okay, now we're talking about the beast, the carbon atom. So I want you to pay close attention. And if we have to extend this into another segment, then of course that's what we'll do. Okay. They say there's light even in the darkest places, so let's begin. Okay, this is probably going to be one of the most interesting findings, I've come across in some time. So, dispelling all the false notions and belief systems around 666. Okay, the number of the beast, the devil, and so on. Okay. And it talks about here the truth of 666 represents a material reality. So keep that in mind. The physical universe made up of carbon atoms. And we touched on some of these areas before. And you've heard me say certain things. You've heard me mention certain things. So we're talking about, of course, which has the 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And here's an interesting analysis, okay, about these events and a staggering revelation. Okay, so I'm going to be saying some things, and we're going to go from there. Okay. And so this way you can get an idea of what this is all about. Okay. And it's actually they call it the secret of secrets. Okay? This is what this is being deemed as, a secret of secrets. So I want you to pay close attention to what I'm going to be saying. Okay? So here we are. Now, there were some scientists that did some studies talking about the carbon atom, okay? And they went to manipulate these atoms, and this is what they found. They talked about a graphene, an octable form of carbon, okay? Okay. Now, carbon, as we know, is the basis of all life forms. And carbon-12 is the most pronounced, or the most, because it resides in everything. But 12 is the most potent element of carbon. Okay? So we talked about and I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Now, the sun, as we know it, the sun in our solar system emits energies, as we all know. Now, in Kemetic theology, they call sun Ra. And they looked at the sun as this life form. Okay? And we're going to get more into that. But what has been found out is that the sun is doing some things more than it ever has. And why is that happening? That is happening because there's a shifting that's happening in the cosmos. Okay? There's a shifting that's happening in the cosmos. Now, this is a benefit to us, the melanated sort. Okay? So now it's talking about the evolution of this 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, from the beast to the light body. Now the Bible talks about in Revelations and in the revealing text, it refers to the number 666 as being the mark of the beast. And you know, when you say that, oftentimes people they become real scary because they have no clue or no idea what this is actually talking about, because the way in which it's been given to you. But in the periodic tables of the elements, the atomic number for carbon elements is 6. Carbon is necessary to form all DNA and RNA. The chemical code of life as it currently exists. And the carbon atom has 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, and 6 protons. It says, if anyone has any insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. The number of man is 6. And you can find that in Revelations 13 and 18. So when these scientists did this study that was being developed in Silicon Valley, the membranes in the Department of Material Science and Engineering at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, in his research, he has discovered that the surface of a silicone membrane can be functionalized to become pH or biologically sensitive. He theorized that it could bind DNA. In other words, silicone can support life. Okay, so at this time in its history, we are evolving very rapidly as a human species. The evolution of our species, the Homo sapien, is quantum leap to an immortal species with 48 chromosomes that have 12 physical strands of DNA and 10 electric strands of DNA. Our three-dimensional biology is being alchemically shifted from carbon-based matter into that of multi-dimensional silicone crystal. And you know how and you've probably heard other people talk about how crystals are good for protection. They're good for emanating energies, energy fields and sources and so forth and so on, and how crystal is used in other things. Even the United States government uses crystals within the atmosphere to emanate precipitation within the clouds. And so they try to manipulate the elements in the universe, and this all comes under alchemical alchemy. But they're doing it for adverse reasons. And of course, this goes against everything in this whole spheres of, manipulating atoms and so forth and so on for the good of the universe. Let me put it that way. Okay, so let's continue. Body of light. Internally, all our cells are being changed from an organic structure to a crystalline structure, the perfect prism through which light can pass for illumination. Okay? When a log of wood is placed in a fire, it burns down until all that remains is the carbon element. Okay, so this is obviously talking about when you reduce carbon. This is why people get cremated when they die. Because what happens through cremation is you go back to that original carbon-based element. But I'll move on. But if a diamond is placed in a fire, its structure is retained. So all of our cells must be transformed from carbon to silicon crystal so that we can withstand the tremendous amount of light that will bring, or that will be streaming into the planet from the central suns in 2012. So this study was done in 2012. Okay, listen. Our crystalline light bodies will then convert that sunlight directly into electricity. This is what will power us. We will require sunlight, not food. Our light bodies will be powered by liquid light. Monocrystalline silicone will be the receiver, and it will work in conjunction with the elements gold, palladium, and titanium. I'm going to drop something on you too, though. Listen, I will tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye at the last trumpet. Okay, you can find that in Corinthians 1, 15 and 51. Now, what is the revelation in all this? Now, if you just heard me read, our crystalline light bodies, right, will then convert to the sunlight directly into electricity. This is what will power us. We will require sunlight. Who will require sunlight? Not food. Now, you heard me do a podcast not long ago when I said that you have to change your diet, which you do. Now, listen, understand and overstand what I'm saying. Well, you told us we have to change our diet. Now we're talking about sunlight. So how do you get to the sunlight? You have to eat electric life first. Life meets life. Okay? So, if you don't power up your carbon-based etherical being, you will not come to this light. So the food in this junction is necessary. So you have to eat life food, electric food. Okay. The other thing is this. It talks about the log being placed in the fire and being reduced to its carbon-based element, right? When the log of wood is put in the fire, it burns down into all the remains of the carbon element. But a diamond is placed in the fire and it holds its structure, right? It's retained. So all the cells must be transformed from carbon to silicon crystal so that we can withstand the tremendous amount of light that will be streaming into the planet from the central suns. So who is going to be able to withstand that tremendous amount of light? Who is? Who is going to be able to withstand that tremendous amount of light? Because I also did a podcast, remember, when we talked about the two suns within the cosmos. There are two suns that are in the cosmos. So as the sun becomes closer to our Earth realm, it's going to be emitting tremendous amount of light frequencies. So again, and we're going to get into, we talked about before, the ascension of that ether realm, where you can ascend to that ether realm, which ether is light and heat, right? Ether is light, heat, elements. So for those of us who are carbon-based, melanated entities, that is talking about you. Because those who are not that 12 carbon-based element will not. Once that carbon base element reduces to light frequencies, everything else on the planet will be disintegrated. That's the secret. That's the secret, y'all. Everyone else, but you have to bring yourself to this etherical ether light body, for the lack of a better word, so to speak. Okay? So, listen up. So food at that point will not be required, because the transitioning, you've already prepared your ether essence. That's why it's so important to do that now. Preparing your ether essence by what you intake spiritually, thinking, feeling, eating. This is preparing your ether body, because remember, it's not just your physical, it's your spiritual. You're feeding your spiritual. You're feeding your spiritual ether element. Okay. That's when the change happens. When it says, I tell you a mystery. That's the mystery. We shall be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. That's through that ether experience, that ether transition, that traversing. Okay? Let us read on. Now listen to this. Listen. I want you to listen. Listen closely. This is deep. I'm giving you some. Whew, this is real deep, y'all. Not everyone will experience this transition. Did you hear what I just said? Not everyone will experience this transformation. However, many people will choose at the soul level to pass on before Earth reaches that time. Still, others will leave because their body will lack. Oh my goodness. What was I just saying? Listen to what I'm just saying. Listen again. Many people will choose at the soul level to pass on before Earth reaches that time. Because of course, you know, people pass on, they transition. But listen, still others will leave because their body will lack the light that will enable them to survive in the higher dimensional level. Oh my goodness. Let me read that again. Let me, oh my goodness. You hear my tone changing, right? Because of frequency and vibration, as I just mentioned earlier, is very important. Still others will leave because their body will lack the light that will enable them to survive in the higher dimensional level. This is what this spiritual battle is all about, y'all. See, and while they're trying to decimate and kill your physical, you can't allow them to kill your spiritual. See, because they know who you are. And I'm talking about, when I say they, I'm talking about the spiritual element that's in the cosmos and that roams throughout the cosmos. I'm not talking about nothing physical. I'm talking about the spiritual. That's why it says you wrestle not against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high places. You wrestle against spiritual wickedness in high places. It's not a physical battle. It is a spiritual battle. How many times have I said that? Over and over and over. How many times have I said it? Over and over and over again, y'all. It's not a physical battle. It is a spiritual battle. And the ones who are fighting you are not spiritual. And they never have been. You have to understand this. Understand this. The ones who are doing the pulling and the tugging and all this crazy stuff, they have never been spiritual. They can't even get there. I'm telling you, you have all the components, tools for that higher ascension. And as I just read to you, it just told you that there are other people who cannot get there. Spiritually, it's going to be over for them. It's done. It's a wrap. I'm telling you, it's a wrap. You are that carbon-based nine ether element in the cosmos that's been holding the cosmos together for billions of years. Okay, and you may not have ever heard it that way, but that's what the truth is. And the Creator gives me that as I give it to you and give you these. He adds on to what I'm already giving to you, and that's truly phenomenal. So I'll read that one more time. But those souls whose decision. Now let me go back a little bit. Let me go back just a little bit. Still others will leave because their body will lack the light. You are the light. You are that light nine ether element in the universe. They will lack the light that will enable them. Still others will leave because their bodies will lack the light that will enable them to survive in the higher dimensional level. But those souls whose decision it is to change their carbon-based cellular structure to the crystalline form will accompany the new Terra Nova Earth into the golden age. They will be able to ascend without leaving their bodies. This is profound, y'all. This is profound. And I remember back in the 70s when I was singing and so forth with different groups and different people. One of the gentlemen that was a close friend of mine back in the day, he was into Eckankar. Some of you might have heard of Eckankar. This was way back in the day. And back in the day, we're talking about the 70s now. And I've had out-of-body experiences during the 70s, which were profound to me at that time. And I really, at that time, didn't understand the science and what was happening. But I was being kind of brought in to this new realm of existing, this new realm of being. And it was real profound for me to experience these things that I was experiencing. And I was like, wow, man. And of course, I would be given information and other things. But at that particular time of my life, I was green. We're talking about the 70s. And this was a new phenomenon to me. And I was like, for the most part, was not really understanding what was taking place. But now, as all of this comes back, it was leading me and letting me know how that melanated carbon-based entity is you. Is you. Okay, so let's go on. I'll read again. But those souls whose decision it is to change their carbon-based cellular structure to the crystalline form will accompany the new Terra Nova Earth into the golden age. They will be able to ascend without leaving their bodies. Powerful. In the New International Version of the Bible, the first line of chapter 13 of the book of Revelation reads, "And the dragon stood on the shore of the sea." In the King James Version, this is y'all's Bible, it reads, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea." It is we who are the beast. Did not I say that before in the other podcast? It is we who are the beast. Now, they have this video. See, and this is what they do. They deleted this video. They don't want you to get certain alchemical non-ether knowledge. So they remove videos. But we're going to move on. We're going to move on. Now listen up. Listen up. So what we're going to do, like I said to you, they'll delete certain videos because they don't want you to be able, or me, or whomever it is. But we're gonna continue. We're gonna continue, and we're gonna give you just a little bit more of what we're gonna do. We're gonna come back, and we're gonna continue. Okay, so now we know that this transformation to light to crystalline existing, okay, this change, this transition, that's going to take place. Okay, so we're talking about a 12 carbon-based element and how this is going to change everything. It talks about the 12 carbon base to the 7 carbon base. Okay? And this has been known for some time. So, and this is why I say we have to study to show ourselves worthy and do the things that we should do to make our ascension that much greater and our transition just that much greater. So this is where we have now a whole lot of consternation in the planet. And okay, because of this carbon base being the most potent, the isotope, and the 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. Okay? And it makes up that number of man. So they say after oxygen, the carbon 12 is the greatest element after, oxygen, okay? So, And then we're talking about hydrogen, helium, and hydrogen. And it's the most abundant element in the universe. So now we find this where? In the DNA and the RNA. Okay, that gives life to us. And this is what they were talking about again in Revelations. Okay, and this comprises our physical makeup. We talked about this before. Okay, so now the transmutation that's going to take place, and it's going to make everything about us and everything that you have ever seen so minute and so redundant. So this is the secret. The alchemists of our ancestors who brought all of this into being, how they can take, the carbon, these elements, and you can, part of gold and copper and iron and create all these different things. And so this is, again, when we talked about the ascensions or ascentrium of our element as a carbon-based entity. Now, and how this and so what happens is, in many of these spiritual areas across the globe who have studied our spiritual science, okay, and they tapped into the higher dimension of our ancestral being, tapped into that spiritual spheres of existing in ways in which have never been described before. And so as that carbon-based entity, it talks about how that our ancestral was the elixir of life. And it's the nectar of immortality. Okay, and so we're going to go from the carbon-based 12 to entering into a portal of the carbon 7, which is 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 1 electron. Okay? And it talks about it being the equivalent of the Kundalini, which we are dealing with the 7 chakras. You got the base chakra, you got the heart chakra, you got the spine chakra, you got the heart chakra, so forth, so on, where we reach the high etherical ascension that reaches to the head chakra, crown chakra as they call it, and we ascend to another dimension. But what we're going to do, we're going to stop there for a moment and we're going to come back. So you guys stay with us and we are going to not disappoint. This is real profound and we want you to stay with us. So like and share, and we will bring you, no, you're going to bring yourself to that higher dimension, because as I said many times before, this is your salvation. This is your way out. Okay? Forget about all that other stuff you've been taught. This is your way to what we call heaven. It ain't nobody coming to snatch you up without you doing your due diligence. And this is our way. We have to get back to our ancestral etherical being, 9 ether being. This is who we are, sun people. This is us. So again, stick around, stay with us, and we're going to be coming back to you very shortly. Okay?